All right, I do blame Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, stain of humanity. Yes, Meghan, and I hope you're watching right now. I hope you're watching, Meghan, because you are the stain of humanity.
What happens when the person selling family values on camera stays silent while a parent is fighting for their life overseas? And why does one missing chapter in a celebrity's past suddenly become the only thing everyone wants to talk about when a tell-all book gets teased? All right, so let's talk about the Markle family situation, because this story has layers, and not the fun onion ring kind, the messy kind, the kind where every time you think you've got it figured out, someone drops a new quote, a new timeline detail, or a source says, and the whole thing flips again. Picture this. Back in California, Meghan is reportedly in full brand mode. Cameras rolling, projects moving, polished messaging, the whole calm lifestyle vibe that looks flawless on screen. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, her father is in a hospital in the Philippines dealing with a serious medical emergency, and her brother, Thomas Markle Jr., is right there, on the ground, living in the stress of it day by day. And that contrast, whether you like Meghan or not, is what's making people's brains itch. Because it's not just celebrity gossip, it's the emotional math of it. People can handle a lot of things. They can handle complicated families. They can handle estrangement. They can even handle silence sometimes. But when the story becomes dad is critically ill, plus daughter is publicly presenting family warmth, plus no visible contact, that's when the internet goes, wait, what? Now, before we go any further, I'm going to keep this grounded in what's being claimed and what's being reported, because a lot of this lives in the world of interviews, tabloids, family statements, and years of public speculation. You already know how this goes. One person's truth becomes another person's agenda, and by the time it hits your feed, it's wearing 5 filters and a dramatic soundtrack. Still, the reason this is blowing up again is because Thomas Markle Jr. is talking loudly, and not in that vague, I might write a book someday way, more like I'm going to put things in print. And when someone says that, the question isn't just what they're going to say. The question is, what do they think they can prove? What do they think they remember? And what do they think the public is ready to believe? Because siblings, listen, siblings are different from random critics. A random critic can only react to the public image. A sibling has the before the PR version, the weird family habits, the old relationships, the private stories, the early hustle years, the stuff that never makes it into a glossy bio. And when a sibling decides they're done being quiet, the whole vibe changes. Even if you don't trust them, you can't ignore the fact that they're not an outsider. So here's the shape of the drama as it's being framed. Thomas Markle Sr., Meghan's father, has had serious health problems over the years, and now there's reporting and family talk about an emergency surgery, ICU, and even an amputation. Heavy stuff, life-changing stuff, the kind of thing that either brings a family together or exposes how broken it already is. Thomas Jr. positions himself as the one there, the caregiver, the person handling reality while everyone else has distance, and he's furious, not quietly disappointed, not sad about it, furious. He talks like someone who feels abandoned by the sister who became a global figure. And that anger, whether it's justified or not, becomes rocket fuel when he starts tying it to a bigger claim, that Meghan has been selling one story about her rise while he believes there's another story underneath it. That's where the book threat becomes something else. Because it's not just, my sister was mean to me, which honestly would not hold people's attention for more than 10 minutes. It becomes, I'm going to talk about the years you don't talk about. And if you've ever followed celebrity narratives, you know exactly what that means. There are certain stretches in a public figure's timeline that get told in 2 sentences. I worked hard. It was a struggle. I did auditions. I kept going. And look, that can be true. It can also be a simplified version that's easier to market than the complicated truth. The claim floating around here is that Meghan's struggling actress era doesn't neatly match the lifestyle some photos seem to show, specifically the yacht party images that have been argued over online for years. Some people treat those photos like proof of a secret life.
Others treat them like normal rich people networking that half of entertainment touches at some point. And here's the problem: because Meghan hasn't publicly walked through it in a detailed way, the vacuum fills itself. That's not me saying she owes anyone her private history. She doesn't. But in the court of public opinion, silence doesn't stay neutral. Silence becomes a canvas. People paint whatever they already wanted to believe. So Thomas Jr. comes in and basically says, no more vague stories, no more pretending, I'm going to correct the record. And that's when everyone suddenly remembers something from 2018. Because Thomas Markle Jr. isn't new to this. Right before the royal wedding, he wrote that open letter to Prince Harry. It went viral. It was blunt. And the reason people keep bringing it up is simple. A lot of what he warned about ended up happening in some form. Family tensions, public warfare, fractures, exits, non-stop headlines. So people look back and go, he called chaos. Now, does that mean he's honest about everything? No. Being right about one thing doesn't make someone a reliable narrator forever. But in internet logic, even partial "I told you so" credibility is like a permanent stamp on your forehead. So now he's teasing a bigger story, specifically the missing chapter, 2004 to 2011, the years after college and before the big Suits break. The claim is that this period has gaps, soft edges, and not a ton of detail compared to the later public narrative. And let's be real, that's not unusual. Lots of people have thin public timelines. Most of us would love it if our early adult years were summarized as, I was grinding and nobody asked follow-ups. Mine would be like, he ate noodles, made bad decisions, and learned the hard way. Very inspiring. But celebrities are different, because when they become symbols, people start treating their origin story like scripture. If the origin story feels curated, people get suspicious. Now, the yacht angle. This is the part that gets people heated, and I'm going to keep it careful, because there's a big difference between there are photos of someone on a yacht and therefore this exact thing happened. The online conversation goes like this. Photos show Meghan in luxury settings around wealthy men. Critics say, how does that fit with broke actress life? Supporters say, entertainment is full of rich social circles, invites, networking, friends of friends, and people acting like any party equals a scandal. Both sides can spin it endlessly because neither side has a full verified story. That's exactly why it's such a sticky rumor. It's emotionally satisfying to people who want a gotcha, and it's easy to dismiss for people who see it as misogynistic nonsense. And Thomas Jr. is basically leaning into the idea that he can add specificity, names, relationships, timelines, context. Whether he actually can is the whole question. Because there's a difference between I saw things, I have opinions, and I have documents, messages, confirmations, and witnesses. Publishers care about that difference. Lawyers really care about that difference. So when insiders say the book will be explosive, I always translate that in my head as someone believes this will sell and someone believes they can defend it. But what really makes this story hit people emotionally isn't the yacht talk, it's the hospital part. Because while the mystery past is spicy, the present-day situation is painful. If Thomas Sr. is seriously ill and Thomas Jr. is caring for him, you can see why resentment would boil over. Imagine you're exhausted, scared, watching doctors, managing bills, living in a hospital routine, and then you see your sister living a glossy life on the other side of the world. Even if there are private calls nobody knows about, even if there's communication behind the scenes, the perception becomes brutal. You're not here. And perception is what tabloids eat for breakfast. There's also this reported detail that instead of a direct visit or a public show of support, communication happened through representatives. That detail alone, fair or not, gives people the cold corporate feeling, like family matters got routed through a PR funnel.
Meghan's public identity, especially in recent years, leans heavily on themes like compassion, mental health, healing, and doing the right thing. If that's your public brand, then personal family estrangement becomes a very sharp contradiction for critics to point at. Not because any human being has to be perfect, nobody is, but because critics will always say you can't preach warmth and live cold. That's the emotional hook, and Thomas Jr. knows it. Whether consciously or not, he's aiming right at the image. He's not just angry at his sister, he's angry at the gap between the image and what he says the reality is. Now let's zoom out and look at the "how did she get into elite circles" question, because this is where the mystery vibe actually gets interesting. Hollywood is basically a machine powered by introductions. You can be talented and still never get in the room. You can be average and end up in rooms you have no business being in because someone likes you, someone owes someone, or you fit a vibe. There are social clubs, private networks, circles where the same names show up again and again. Some people call it networking, some people call it gatekeeping, some people call it social climbing. Depending on your mood that day, it's all of the above. So the question that keeps getting asked is, how does someone go from modest roles and auditions to suddenly being in rooms where everyone who matters seems to know them? And to be fair, there are a lot of normal answers: dating someone connected, having a friend who pulls you into events, being good at social relationships, being in the right city at the right time, working in adjacent industries, being invited because you're recognizable or charming or useful to a vibe. That's not automatically sinister. But when a family member comes along and says, "I saw the real version," people lean in, because family stories can fill gaps in a way PR never will. Now, here's the part people should keep in mind before they get carried away. Thomas Jr. has motives. That doesn't mean he's lying. It means his perspective is not neutral. There's hurt, there's estrangement, there might be money issues, there might be resentment about fame, there might be old grudges. And when you write a tell-all about your globally famous sibling, it's very hard to pretend the goal is purely truth. It can be truth and revenge at the same time. Humans are talented like that. So if this book comes out, the real question is going to be, does it bring receipts or does it bring vibes? Because vibes sell, but receipts change narratives. Also, and I'm saying this as someone who has watched the internet do this 1,000 times, people love to treat allegations like confirmed facts if it fits their preferred storyline. And then, 6 months later, everyone forgets what was proven and what was just said loudly. So if you're watching this unfold, do yourself a favor. Keep 2 mental boxes. Box A, this is verified. Box B, this is being claimed. And do not mix the boxes just because you're emotionally invested. Now, if you're wondering why the timing is hitting so hard, it's because it stacks multiple tensions at once. 1, a serious medical crisis with the father. 2, a visible absence narrative. 3, a brother who feels ignored. 4, a brand-heavy moment for Meghan. And 5, a promised book that targets the missing years. That's not just drama, that's a storyline designed to explode. And people are already adding extra spice with side rumors like marriage trouble, brand strain, Hollywood whispers, and every other thing that gets sprinkled in whenever Meghan and Harry trend. Half of that is noise. Some of it might be real, but it all gets pulled into the same storm. So let's get to the 3 big questions everybody is really waiting on, because these are the questions a tell-all would have to answer to actually matter. First, who were the people in those luxury circles, and how did those connections form? Not vague, not "a friend invited her." Real names, real contexts, real timelines. Second, what's the honest story of career momentum? Was it purely audition grind? Was it introductions? Was it both? Because it's almost always both, but the proportions matter if someone is selling a specific narrative. Third, why is the family relationship so broken that even a medical emergency can't bridge it? That's the human heart of the story. Not yachts, not parties, not Hollywood, the family fracture. And if Thomas Jr. can't answer that third one in a way that feels fair and complete, a lot of people are going to see the book as a hit job instead of a truth project. Because here's the thing, when families split, there are usually reasons on both sides. Sometimes really painful reasons, sometimes safety reasons, sometimes years of emotional damage, sometimes it's as simple as ego and pride, but often it's deeper. Now, if this breakdown is making you rethink parts of the story, do the YouTube thing for me. Hit subscribe, because I'm not letting this one go if that book starts dropping actual details. And if you got a strong opinion, drop it in the comments. But please, I'm begging you, try to separate what you know from what you suspect. You can still have a spicy take, just label it properly. Okay, so what happens next? If Thomas Jr. truly has specific, defendable material, the pressure will build, not just on Meghan's public image, but on the whole how stories get packaged thing. Because if the public version of an origin story gets challenged with detail, it forces people to admit something uncomfortable. Celebrity narratives are usually curated. If he doesn't have that level of proof, it will turn into a loud cycle. Headline, counter-headline, sources close to, friends say, insiders claim, and then everyone moves on to the next fire. But either way, there's one part of this that isn't entertainment. An elderly man is reportedly dealing with serious health issues. A son is reportedly caring for him. A daughter is living a public life that gets judged under a microscope. And a family fracture is playing out on the world stage like it's a streaming series. That's grim, no matter whose side you're on. So I'll end on this thought. The reason this story keeps coming back isn't because people are obsessed with yachts or private clubs. It's because people are obsessed with the question of character. They want to know whether someone's public identity matches their private choices, especially when the stakes are human and emotional. And when a sibling says, "I'm going to tell the story you don't want told," the audience leans in because it feels like the curtain might actually move. Now it's your turn. Do you think this is a genuine attempt to correct the record, or do you think it's anger dressed up as truth? And if the book does come out, what would you need to see to believe it? Receipts or just confidence? Drop your thoughts below. And if you made it to the end, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching, seriously.